Hi everyone, you guys have been asking how I make the one quilt where I have all the easy layer cake pieces that look like this. And so I'm going to show you how to do that really quick. So what I've done is taken 2 layer cake pieces, which are 10 by 10 pieces. I've layered them on top of each other and lined them up really good. Now I'm going to line up vertically and horizontally. So I've got my vertical line here, so I'm going to put a point on each vertical line. And then I'm going to put my points on a horizontal line. And so I'm going to move this down just a little bit so I have horizontal line lined up and vertical line lined up. Now I want to go on 1 inch on each side of the center. So I start by placing my ruler straight down the center like that so that I'm 1 inch over. And I can line up with my board this way as well. So I've lined up with my board and I've lined up with my ruler. So now I'm going to cut 1 inch on this side. And the nice thing about using my ruler or my mat is that I can now go over to 1 inch on the other side and line it up with my mat. So now I'm going to cut on the other side. Okay, so now I have 2 pieces like that and 4 pieces that are triangles. I do a whole bunch of these at the same time and pin each set together like this. I want to sew a dark with a light in this case. So I put my lights together like that with my darks together like this with the light, and then I take it to the sewing machine. Okay, so I have my pieces and now I'm going to sew them together. I put the long piece down first and then I lay my triangle on top, lining up the long edge. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I want to try and get it as centered on there as possible. Sometimes my corners get a little wonky and that's okay. We're going to square it all in the end. Alright, so I have 1/4 inch seam allowance on my machine. I use a neutral thread. Normally, I would have a stack of them here, and I would just run them all through and then turn around and run them all through on the other side. So as I finished this one going through the machine, I would have put this over to the side and would have come back and done it again. All right, so now I've got my long side up. I'm going to take the other side, line it up, and you can sort of see how I'm short here. That's okay, I'm going to just square it. I'm just going to center it. Like I said, we're going to square later, so that'll all be okay in the end. All right, now I'm going to do the other side. So I noticed as I was sewing, my finger got in the way a little bit there, so I'm just going to go and make sure that I have my 1/4 inch seam. It will just make things so much easier if I have that 1/4 inch seam. So I've sewn right over that. That'll open up just fine. All right, I'm going to press this open, and I'll meet you at the cutting table with the squaring ruler. Okay. Now I want to trim down the block so that I have a 9-inch block. I know we started with 10 inches, but after we get those seam allowances in, it starts knocking it down a little bit. So we're going to use the Perfect 10 ruler. And what I do is I want to make sure I have a nice perfect 9-inch block. And I want to have a nice perfect point here at the end. When I go to put these blocks together, I'm going to want those points to be perfect. I did go ahead and press my block out nice and straight, so that I would have a nice flat surface to work with. Okay, so I put my Perfect 10 ruler on here. My Perfect 10 ruler has these little X's in between each inch. And so what I want to do is line up those X's with the sides of my lines here. And so you're going to see real quick how wonky that block got while I was sewing it. All right, so I have lined up those X's as best as I can. And my niece, Kyla, brought out that, ooh, you could use a vis-a-vis or a expo marker and mark that line down those X's, and that will make it even easier. I hadn't thought about that. And so she said, oh, yeah, look, there's marks on here from the last time I was doing a project. And so that is an excellent idea. I hadn't thought about that. And so I have lined it up with all these X's on either side. They're not quite on, but I can definitely tell it's a lot squarer than it was. See, you can see how I've got a whole bunch over here, a whole bunch over here. And I want to make sure down here that I'm definitely in that 9-inch mark so that when I go to trim on the other side, I have plenty to trim off. Okay, I'm going to hold it down really tight. Trim off both these sides. And then I'm going to turn it over. And now I have a perfect square down here, so I can just simply line that up. And it's a lot easier. I am going to double check, though, that my X's are lining up the way I want them to. And I'm going to move it in just a little bit and trim it again. You have to do this with every single block. This is the time-consuming part of this project, but it makes it so easy when you go to put it together. All right. So, like I said, I really like to get a whole bunch of these going. I will then trim a whole bunch at the same time. So now I have a whole bunch of these blocks ready to go. For a queen-size quilt, I like to have 9 by 7, so I have 63 squares, or 9 by 8, 72 squares in there. And so I think the last one I did was 9 by 8. I wanted a nice big queen quilt, and then I put borders on the edge. And when I line them up, I like to line them up so that they're cross-hatching like this. This is my block of choice. I would probably switch these two because the colors look better this way. And so I'll lay them out on the bed or on the floor, and all of a sudden I have this really, really cool cross-hatching pattern. But you can see why it's so important to square each one of them up, because you want these corners to match. The other way you could turn them is you could go the same direction for each one. I can't go the same direction, obviously. So you could go the same direction for each one. I think that would be a really cool pattern too. I just haven't tried it yet. There's so many other ways. You could also then take these blocks and cut them in half, or twist them around, or go this direction. This is just a super easy quilt using 10-inch squares, which you could make or you could purchase. And so if you have any other questions, please come by and see us. We'll help you out. See ya.